Have you ever wondered what happens inside your brain when you learn a new language? Well, what if I told you that with just 5 years of language learning, you can transform your brain forever?
Studies have shown that learning a second language is one of the most effective brain workouts that you can do.
And if you're wondering what magnificent muscles these workouts will unlock, I have 11 incredible things to show you. So, want to reshape your brain? All you need is a language you want to learn and the clues in this video. Let's go.
When you feel good, your brain is releasing one of the happy chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, or endorphin.
So you have these two little happy chemicals in your brain, dopamine and serotonin. You've probably heard of them. One gives temporary pleasure, the other gives long-lasting happiness. Basically, anything that is fun will trigger a dopamine release. And if you've ever wondered why gamey language apps are so addictive, well, it's because of dopamine. Each time you get something right, it feels good, and that's a dopamine hit that you're feeling. Only problem is, the feeling doesn't last, and this is how addiction gets you. You just want more, so you go back to the game and avoid taking a real lesson, which is a lot harder. Do you need dopamine? Of course, we all need it, but the downside is dopamine doesn't change the way you feel about yourself inside. It can't give you confidence, and the one thing you need most to go out and start speaking your new language, of course, is confidence. Enter serotonin. Serotonin is in charge of your internal good feelings. In language learning, serotonin increases when you get to the genuine success part. What do I mean? Well, the day you actually go out there and have a conversation with a native speaker and they understand you and it flows, it's a great feeling. You walk away feeling really good about yourself, even if you were terrified, because you did it, man. And the next day you still feel good about yourself. Accomplishment. Serotonin activities don't give you a huge rush at the end, and they're harder to do, but the feeling lasts because instead of just constantly leveling up, you actually learn how to speak a language for life. So what can you do to increase serotonin? First, the obvious. Reassess how you're learning language, your materials. Go to the kind of language gym that gets you speaking to people from the start. If I could do it with 7 new languages, well, so can you. In fact, just steal all my secrets right here. By the way, a fun app is also going to suppress your negative emotions. And unfortunately, there's one crucial thing that happens when we shut off our negative emotions. Know what it is?
I can't believe that you're being so what is the word? Selfish, pig-headed.
Really? Her words, not mine.
Do you know how frustrating it is to have to translate everything in my head before I say it? Do you even know how smart I am in Spanish?
Believe it or not, we need to feel our negative emotions to successfully learn a new language. We need the full spectrum, the good emotions and the bad ones, or we stop learning. And here's why. Your first language is the one you learned around your family, and there was a lot of emotion involved. It was normal life. It was informal. Everyone was just being real. But the language you're learning now, probably not quite the same level of real. Am I right? Thing is, emotion is an essential tool to jump ahead quickly, and learning a language in an everyday life setting makes you learn a lot faster. So if you can create an environment where you feel normal feelings, things are going to speed up for you. And over the course of 5 years, chances are you'll speak to native speakers, maybe travel to their country. Those everyday emotions start showing up, and instead of getting mad in French like this,
I am so furious that I cannot speak anymore. So, I will have this man act out my anger towards you.
you can experience the language in all its colors. And the brain benefit? Well, integrating with and understanding a new culture will increase your empathy and emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence experienced through a new language. But wait, it gets more interesting.
There's a new study out on bilingual people, and if you are A, bilingual, and B, emotional, this is for you. You may be less likely to be impacted by emotional words in your second language. And that's according to a new study from researchers at a Polish university who did some experiments on 47 Polish women, because they think if processing information in a second language means less emotional attachment, could therapy in a patient's second language help them, if this is useful, to distance themselves from a traumatic event?
Did you get that? It's crazy how good this discovery is. If something traumatic happened in your past, your brain doesn't link that event to this new language you're learning. Why would it? And I agree that when your feelings about something are very strong or you're feeling vulnerable, it helps to create a bit of distance by using a second language to talk about it. Have you tried that before? This is powerful stuff. You should try it. Write down your feelings in the language you're learning instead of in your first language and just see how it feels different. Also, it fits nicely with the whole wake-up fluent phenomenon. Fascinating topic. You can catch the story here if you want. The basic idea is if something happens where you damage the part of your brain that knows English, your brain searches for another way to communicate. And if you know any other languages, there's a good chance you'll be able to access them. Pretty cool, huh? There's another win from this coming up later. Stay tuned. Speaking of things coming up later, I have some fantastic videos planned for the year ahead. And if you don't want to miss them, simply hit the 3 little dopamine buttons right here. Go on, you'll feel good instantly. Wouldn't you love to learn the self-discipline to laser focus, on anything at all? Well, here's something you might never have thought of. While you're speaking your second language, your brain is suppressing your first language. You can't help it, and it's amazing.
When you learn a second language, you are qualitatively different to a monolingual. When you learn 2 languages and you have 2 languages in your head, those languages are always switched on, always active. And the result is that they are constantly fighting between each other.
Every time you have a conversation, you're forcing your bilingual mind to A, detect which language it's hearing, and B, choose the correct language and words to use. And it's constant. Is it a dog or a chien? Jim or Jimu? Flight or volo? Your brain actually tries hard to block English so that you can remember the French, Japanese, Italian words instead. It's called language inhibition. If your brain didn't do this, it would be impossible to keep languages separate. It would all just be one big mess. Can you imagine? Of course, it's more nuanced than this and depends on proficiency, but it's proper mental exercise, the equivalent of taking your brain to the gym.
The continual effort of suppressing a language when speaking another, along with the mental challenge that comes with regularly switching between languages, exercises our brain. It improves our concentration, problem solving, memory, and in turn, our creativity.
Bouncing back and forth like this is also brilliant for sharpening your decision-making skills. Your overall attention span improves and you can focus more easily.
People who speak more than one language can also boost their gray matter count when switching between languages, which can improve prefrontal cortex functions, including decision-making and concentration.
And then your beautiful brain gets bigger and quicker at switching between any tasks and filtering out information that you don't need.
So with attention, we are focusing on the language that's being in use right now. So I'm focusing on English and I'm inhibiting my Spanish.
That's why bilingual children are better at tests involving ambiguous figures. It's easier and faster for them to turn off rabbit and turn on duck.
So if you're busy learning another language, why not kick it up a notch? Try to block your native language completely. No subtitles, no translating, no mixing languages. The more fluent you get, the closer you come to concentration ninja.
Rice.
Rice.
Rock.
Ever heard a Japanese person struggle with the difference between R and L, R and L? Us English speakers struggle too. Try the sound difference between P and B.
It's actually not that easy to hear because BS and PS, the pronunciation is very close. So let's see. Absolument. Absolument. Absolument.
And tricky German sounds? We have to rewire our brains for this.
They say Mädchen instead of Mädchen, and öffnen instead of öffnen, and Frühstück instead of Frühstück.
But there is a reason behind it all.
It's estimated that humans can make around 800 distinct verbal sounds, known as phonemes, like ch or oo or s. Any individual language will only use a few dozen, and the ones you don't use you can't really hear.
But did you know that babies under 6 months can hear all of these sounds with no problem? The whole spectrum of phonemes, babies just hear them. Any bilingual babies out there in the audience? Well, this is why it's super easy for you to automatically separate 2 sets of sounds, rhythms, and timing.
English is a stress-timed language, which means that the rhythm is based on the important words, and all the unimportant words are just jammed in between the beats. I'm gonna go to the store, I'm gonna buy some snacks, and then I'll come home. Spanish, however, is a syllable-timed language, where each syllable is given more equal timing.
Voy a ir al supermercado a comprar unos bocadillos y ya vuelvo de regreso.
Problem is, after your first year of life, some people say even as early as about 8 months, you started filtering out sounds that you didn't need to speak your native language and pretty much lost the rest. So your brain got hardwired to the sounds of your first language, so now you hear all other languages through that filter. It's super interesting and a little bit infuriating since we can't very well be babies again. So what can we do? Well, the good news is the more years you spend learning languages, the more your ears tune into these secret sounds and you can become really good at perceiving subtle sound differences. If you want sharper listening skills, here's a little tip from babies themselves. Try watching the mouths of native speakers to see how they form those strange sounds.
Swedish and English both use physical distances to express a measure of time. In English, we'd say a short break or a long wedding. We use these descriptive terms as though the passage of time is a measurable distance. In Greek and Spanish, on the other hand, time is marked with terms that refer to volume. In Spanish, you'd say a small break or a big wedding.
Language can affect our most basic senses and perceptions. Mandarin speakers often see time vertically. The Aymara people map the past as in front of them, and Russian kids learn two completely different color words for blue.
Синий. Голубой.
So can learning languages change the way you perceive the world? Yes, in many ways. Languages aren't even equal when it comes to what words mean, and there seem to be a lot of missing words between languages.
Gigil, Tagalog. Gigil doesn't have an exact translation in English, but you can think of it as a nearly uncontrollable emotional response, often to something cute like a baby or puppy, but sometimes to something that's actually infuriating.
English doesn't have a word for this exact feeling or for tons of other feelings. If you have a good one, then go ahead and share it in the comments. And the English word for love, come on, we're starving for more descriptive love words in this language. I love my family, my cat, my whiskey. Love is the only word we have in English, which is weird because they're different kinds of feelings. So when you learn Spanish, you end up thinking of love in a slightly different way. Now imagine if you learned Sanskrit. I think your happiness would probably go through the roof.
It was the first study which suggested that bilingual people who speak more than one language, develop dementia 4 to 4.5 years later than those who don't. It was a powerful confirmation of the idea of cognitive reserve.
It's sad, but a fact of life. Any part of your brain that you don't use starts to wither, especially as you age. And one of our biggest fears is losing our memory. Would you agree? One thing you forget is languages, so you need to use that part of your brain because if you keep learning languages, your brain gets better at protecting itself against the losses.
Cognitive reserve is the idea that people develop a reserve of thinking abilities, and this protects them against losses that can occur through aging and disease.
But learning a new language also improves memory. In fact, it makes certain brain areas increase in size. More on that later. Your brain can even grow new neural networks, which leads to the best part. Brain functions can actually move from a damaged area to an undamaged area. And a brain that knows a second language has potential to recover faster.
Could we harness that mechanism to get the brain to heal its scars? Similar to how new skin grows to patch up a wound, or a broken bone stitches itself back together.
If all this sounds like a pretty sweet deal for your later years, well, it is.
Allora, quando sei arrivata in Italia, potevi parlare...
Francese.
Ma come potevi parlare francese?
Francese con i miei genitori.
Donc, à l'époque, en Égypte...
Oui, je suis née en Égypte.
Ouais.
Je peux lire, je peux parler, mais je comprends.
Qu'est-ce que tu peux dire en arabe?
أهلا وسهلا. أهلا وسهلا. It means welcome.
You're keeping different parts of your brain active as you age, parts that it wouldn't normally use, and that's the secret. So what can you start doing now? Well, don't ever tell yourself you're too old to learn a new language. That's just silly. I don't care if you're 105. Treat your brain to an exciting new language. Just in case you didn't know, these days there are amazing options, and if you want to escape ordinary language learning through adventure and mystery, well, you can. If you love stories, there is the StoryLearning method, although admittedly, I'm biased. That's how we do things around here. Remember reading your favorite books as a kid? You learned a lot about your own language through those stories, right? And using a story to learn a language works for adults too. I really want you to see exactly how it works. So I'm going to leave you my free StoryLearning kit. It's in the description below. You can find the link, click it, you get the free StoryLearning kit. It's basically a free tour and some fun stuff to try out with story-based language learning. This way you can decide for yourself if it's the kind of thing that might make sense for you, and you could maybe start to learn a new language with us with StoryLearning. It's completely free. Just click the link in the description.
Speaking multiple languages improves your divergent thinking skills, training you to think of multiple solutions to problems on a consistent basis.
In other words, learning a new language makes you good at thinking outside the box, and that's some cool creative skills right there. Every language learner faces this dilemma sometimes, being completely stuck for words. You recognize that? We've all been there. You know what you want to say, but just not in that language.
As a French learner, you're going to be confused a lot of the time, and you're going to want to express that. As an English speaker, you might have looked this up and found the word confus. But I can tell you from my experience, my frustrating experience, that in almost every instance as a French learner that you will want to say confused in French, confus will be the wrong word.
The problem is just that in some cultures, they describe things very differently.
Simply, the French phrase you want to use doesn't take the direct translation of English. And this feels weird because you're connected to the English way of saying it on an intuitive level. It's automatic.
So when you're not sure, you often have to find other ways to say a thing. And when faced with a native speaker, your brain's really firing to get creative. This experimenting teaches your brain that it's okay to have a bit of freedom when you're figuring things out. And the 5-year result? Well, you learn to be great at coming up with multiple solutions to a problem.
People tend to react more emotionally in their first language and more rationally in a more abstract way in the second.
Maybe this is why people switch to their native language in a heated argument. And maybe that's also why they tend to say more hurtful things they're going to regret after the switch.
This is so interesting. When you're very emotional, it can be tough to make the right decision. Your brain knows how to manipulate your thoughts. But wouldn't you make the exact same decision in a foreign language? American researchers say that you don't always, because when you think in a second language, you emotionally distance yourself from your memories.
I will not allow you to lecture me about the merits of emotion.
Then why don't you stop me?
Step away from me, Mr.
What is it like not to feel anger, or heartbreak, or the need to stop at nothing to avenge the death of the woman who gave birth to you?
Back away from
You
me.
feel nothing!
In fact, thinking in a new language can even help you avoid false memories.
It is possible to have a memory of something that never happened. False memories can be full of detail and emotion. We experience them just the same way as we experience true memories.
Along with your real memories, any false memories are attached to your native language, and your brain isn't fooled by them once you switch languages. Apparently, this is a brilliant brain hack for critical thinking skills. When you're thinking in a foreign language, there's less bias going on in your head, so you're more analytical, less emotional, and it's easier to make decisions. So there you go. Use your second language as a kind of mental shortcut to skip to the important stuff. In fact, try this. Next time you have to make a big decision, try thinking about it in your second or third language.
Knowing 2 or more languages means that your brain may actually look and work differently than those of your monolingual friends.
What is this madness? How on earth can your brain look different? Well, the reason is simple enough. Apart from all the new sounds and words, grammar is a complex little monster. When you force yourself to think about a brand new type of grammar and how to untangle the convoluted mystery, this is uncharted territory for your brain, and it has the awesome side effect of making you smarter overall. Okay, but how does your brain look different? First, it's where you store the new language.
Children who learn a second language early on store it together with their native language, while in adult learners, it is saved in a different area of the brain.
So something new is activated if you learn a language as an adult. Awesome, but that's not all.
Being multilingual gives your brain some remarkable advantages. Some of these are even visible, such as higher density of the gray matter that contains most of your brain's neurons and synapses, and more activity in certain regions when engaging a second language.
And a Swedish Armed Forces Interpreter Academy had a study where students were tasked with learning a language at a very fast rate. MRI scans were showing that specific parts of the brain were developing in size. They were getting bigger just because they were learning a language.
The punchline is they did the same test on another group learning something completely different, and their brains did not change in size. So it was the languages. Your brain can actually change its physical structure. You can see over here exactly where. I told you, a lifetime of speaking 2 or more languages gives you very, 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 very big muscles, although I'm not sure I would know. If you want to support your own neuroplasticity while you learn a language, try this. Eliminate all the distractions so you can focus. Be realistic about your goals. Self-awareness is important, so don't tell yourself you'll be fluent in 3 weeks. You won't. Don't study for more than 90 minutes at a time and have lots of rest periods doing absolutely nothing, not even thinking, and always get a good night's sleep. Simple, right? You've heard it all before, but these can be very, very powerful for language learning. Let yourself go on the adventure.
What else can your bilingual brain do?
It can raise your language proficiency to learn more languages easily because your brain is already primed for learning and adapting to different languages.
Once you've learned a second language, your brain is on fire. It now knows how to learn another language as an adult, and it will more easily accept weird new words as normal. And this is certainly my experience personally of having learned languages. It was that first triumph I had with French that gave me the confidence to go on and learn so many other languages.
What does the bilingual cat say?
What?
Woof.
Okay, silly joke, but there's this thing called meta-bilingual awareness where your brain learns to easily adjust to different types of language patterns. In English, it goes like this. In Arabic, it goes like that. Awesome. Thanks for the cool new skill. Now, when you get to learn a third language, even if it's super hard and the rules are different, it will feel just less alien. If you want to test your growing sophistication in languages, have a laugh at yourself. Try inventing bilingual jokes. And then we're back to brain benefit number 1. So which language are you going to go for to increase the size of your brain? If this is your first rodeo, maybe start with an easier one. And I just happen to have 5 great choices in this viral video over here. So go check it out, make your decision, and let me know in the comments.